All right, well, why don't we get started? I think everyone's jumped in. So first off, what a few weeks it's been for all of us. I think in the history of early career programs, this has been the biggest call to leadership for all of you. And we're so excited to be able to host you and share some of these best practices. We have around 150 talent leaders from Fortune 1000 companies who, like all of you, have share in common that you've worked nonstop to keep your early career program going, despite many organizations having to cancel them. And so a big congratulations to all of you for pushing so hard to make that happen. It's really a life-changing experience for all of the intern and early career hires that are coming in. So hats off to all of you. And we are very excited to bring together some of the best thought leaders in this space to support you in making sure that you have some best practices to make this summer one of the best experiences interns have ever had. So I guess just to kick this all off, to introduce myself, nice to virtually meet everybody. My name is Dave Wilkin. I'm the founder of 10,000 Coffees, and our organization is focused on helping people build the talent development and connection that they need to succeed. And now that's more important than ever before, yet difficult, especially for the early career hires to build the connections that they need to grow, to convert their offers, and to explore the careers in your organizations. We've done this with over 150 clients, and what we've put together today is some really important data from the thousands, actually tens of thousands of students that rely on our technology to create the informal mentoring and networking. So we took that data, but we've also talked with around 50 talent leaders just in the last 3 weeks to specifically think about early career programs that are fully remote. And so we've compiled that today to crash course a webinar with all of you to share best practices, key challenges, and how all of you can walk away with the best case study from this summer's program. And a big warm welcome to my fellow panelists, Brien and Bridget, joining us from RBC and IBM. You might have seen their smiling faces on a variety of stages across North America, speaking to some of their award-winning programs on early careers. You've probably read about them in Fast Company and in Forbes, in some of the biggest industry publications. And thanks to both of them for finding an hour in your 60 to 80-hour work weeks to share some of the best practices that all of our attendees can take back to make sure that their programs are that much better. What's interesting about these two panelists is that Brien's actually used 10,000 Coffees for about 5 years and has been supporting digital first connectivity programs for early careers for that time. And Bridget has just joined forces with us, and our teams are working around the clock to launch their virtual programs using 10,000 Coffees. And so it'll be an interesting kind of contrast between both of them for how quickly they were able to adapt in this non-stop switch to fully virtual world. So thanks for joining us, and we're really excited to share some of your case studies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This is one of kind of the biggest moments, and I know Bridget and Brien, we've talked about this so much. It's a massive moment for everybody on this webinar. Not only is this a breakout moment for your employer brand that will be remembered for many years to come, but for everybody on this webinar, it's also a career moment for each and every one of you. These early career programs, they not only have the eyeballs of the C-level executives at your company, but you're managing stakeholders across North America or even around the world with all of the colleges and universities. And this is a chance to pilot and accelerate future of work programs that aren't just going to change how early career programs work, but they're going to be the testing grounds for future of work programs across all segments. And so we want to make sure that all of you have the innovation and the best practices to not just win with your early career programs, but also to stand out as thought leaders across all of your talent programs, because all eyes are on this summer, and it's a chance for us to show the innovation trajectories that all of you have driven. So congrats, and we're here to support you to make sure that you have those best practices. So to do that, we've put together, as my team has referred to many times, as the crash course. We've got about 50 minutes left, and we have a ton of things to cover. But keep in mind that we'll be following up after to make sure that you can book one-on-one meetings with our team to dive into anything that's helpful. And we're happy to make introductions to any of you once this is all done. So what we've put together is out of those thousands of informal mentoring and networking conversations across students all around the world, as well as these 50 conversations with talent leaders, we've summarized them into 2 key challenges, but not just challenges, but also how to overcome them. So I'll be sharing those with all of you. Then I'll be passing it over to Brien and Bridget to deep dive into how they've done this and how they've developed these programs kind of overnight. We'll then be a fly on the wall to kind of have a coffee chat with Bridget and Brien, and then open it up to Q&A. 2 housekeeping items in all of this. First is that we're recording it. We know you have colleagues back at your office that may not have been able to join this session. We'll share this recording with all of you so that you can have it for your colleagues back at their homes. The second is that all of you can ask questions throughout. In fact, please do pipe in and ask questions. The way that you can do that is just right on that chat. So type in your questions, and then I'll be facilitating this in the back of our webinar. So with that, sit back and hope you enjoy this next 50 minutes. So one of the first challenges is if all of you kind of look at your intern and early career program surveys, one of the top things they want is informal development and connection. And that was something they wanted before we rapidly shifted to remote work. And now that we've shifted to remote work, the ways that employees got access to connection and informal development have been canceled. There's no events, there's no onboarding programs. The ways that they met friends, met colleagues, explored opportunities, that happened in person. And suddenly that's been canceled overnight. One of the biggest challenges for all of our talent leaders and early career program leaders is to put that expectation on the end employee. And that's a challenge because there's a big gap between what your leadership teams think is possible and what's actually happening with this critical early career cohort. When we ask leaders, they actually think early career hires can do this on their own. We can just give them a phone book and they can find all the connections that they need. But when you actually look at early career, there's a major missing permission asset, skill set, and confidence to actually create these connections. And this has been amplified with the fact that now all of them are working from home. They don't have the open concept offices. They don't have the events. Most early career hires don't even feel like they're allowed to do this, even when their talent team says they are. So there's this disconnect that we really need to manage between what leaders think is possible and the expectations that we put onto our interns as they're working remote. So the way that we overcome that is to build a culture of connectivity from day one. So for all of you, think about how you can make sure that permission asset is clear to all of your interns from day one and throughout their entire term that they're spending with you, whether it's 8 weeks or whether it's 12 months, depending on the program. That culture of connectivity ingrained in the experience is critical. What we've also found is that, just a few months ago when things were a lot more normal, people had very limited experiences based on where they were located. If they couldn't get to a physical event because they were in the field or they were in a production facility, they missed the opportunities of connection. And one of the exciting parts of this shift is that in the last month, we've seen that 22% of people, for the first time ever, have had a virtual career coffee chat online just like this. And what that presents is that we've had a mass change in access to these career conversations that we were limited by when we used to rely on physical events. So this shift to digital has actually democratized the access to peers and friends and colleagues that all of our interns get, which means that they can get more development experiences using digital to friends, to colleagues, to people on different teams. It's a real opportunity for all of us to be able to unlock in this next term. The second challenge, and this is one of the biggest challenges I think all of you are really feeling, is that the burden what a lot of people refer to as the tax, is being pushed back onto all of you. And all of you have been working so hard to make these programs possible. One of the challenges is how do we not make this tax or burden land back on your desk? One of the first reasons why this is a challenge and what was unanimous across these 50 leaders is how unclear ownership is. Who actually owns the connectivity and informal mentoring that's critical to offer conversion and employee experience? When we talk to interns think it's their manager's job, but managers have on average 11 direct reports, and they're managing this major transformation of remote work. So managers actually point and they think it's the working team, and the working team kind of thinks it's either the manager's job, but mostly it all lands back on the early career talent team's desks, all of your desks. And it's an impossible challenge because when you think whether it's 100 interns or whether it's thousands of interns or early career hires, they all have different needs and wants. They might want to explore new businesses. They might want mentoring. As Brien has often said, it might be a reason, a season, a lifetime. The permutations of connectivity are infinite. It's an impossible task to land on the talent team's desk. So if we look at this challenge, if we were just to imagine just 300 interns, we want them to have 6 kind of connections once they're done. That's over 14,000 smart emails that your team has to manage. It's an impossible task and a ton of work to invite, to match, to remind, and to measure. Over 14,000 emails have to take place to make sure that just 300 interns have the connection that they need to be successful. So what we need to do to kind of take away from that, and one of our second tips is once we've built that culture of connectivity and that permission asset, we then need to empower employees to personalize their development, allow them to set their own goals, to set their own career paths. And to do that, we need to actually transfer the burden onto technology. And, of course, a spoiler alert in all of this is there's technology that can automate this so that your team can focus on the strategy, and that technology can create all of those 14,000 emails in a smarter, more dynamic, machine learning driven way. And so technology can actually own those, how to intern connections, whether it's the 2 peer connections, whether it's connections to working teams, hiring managers, executives. This knowledge network is the mix that needs to happen. Let's let technology drive that so that you don't have to do that on your own. And then lastly is to measure what matters. One of the opportunities out of this moment is that all eyes are on this program for this future of work acceleration that's happened. And measurement can't just happen once the interns or early career program ends and we look at offer conversion rate, did it happen or not? There's all these little building blocks that take place week over week leading up to it. And I know Brian's going to speak to this throughout his case studies. So, and I know Bridget's been hard at work on this as well. But there's actually ways to measure access to development experiences, program participation in real time throughout the program. So long before the end date, we've actually been able to keep that employee experience and net promoter score at a level that's going to help us have a breakout success. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Brien. And I know Brian's won awards and been recognized for his program. So Brien, thanks again for joining. I'll let you go and then pass it to Bridget after that.
Sure, thanks Dave and Bridget, glad to be here with you guys today, and those on the call as well. So let's talk about how helping students build knowledge networks and how that works and what we mean by that. So let's go to the next slide. So let's just start with the basics, like what is a knowledge network? And as we think of knowledge networks as professionals, it's a group of people that we go to, right, for different things. So maybe it's someone you talk to when it's someone that you need advice on as far as speaking engagements and how to handle those. Maybe it's another person you go to for knowledge around talent management. Maybe it's another person you go to for financial advice. So as you build out your own knowledge network as professionals, we all go to different people for different things. So this concept is something we actually do. We might just not realize we're doing it. And the beauty of this, when you talk in these words or this type of communication with students, and as they join you remotely and virtually this summer, how do they build those knowledge networks remotely? And we'll talk a little bit about that, but what is the actual importance of that? So as they build out their various connections, those different people will become their people that actually help them build out likely opportunities for other jobs, opportunities to build their knowledge, and just opportunities for them to build their network at large. So with the concept of networking, we know that students sometimes are scared by the word, or it's not part of their strategy. They just don't understand it. But building out a knowledge network and communicating in those terms should help students first get their head around what we're trying to do. So let's talk strategy. So one of the biggest things we look at, and you can go to the next slide, Dave, is the idea around attraction and engagement. So how do you attract people and get them interested in your organization? How do you be authentic with your messaging? How do you take things from the corporate and bubble it down towards a student level? So when it comes to attracting and engaging, there's all different ways and all different marketing channels to reach talent. We're not going to get into that today. That's probably a lot of your sweet spots. But when you attract and engage that talent, the next slide is what I really want to talk about. Do you have a listening strategy? This was my biggest aha moment when I came to RBC. Was I was taking over a team that was pretty much a well-oiled machine. The co-ops and internships were running fairly well. But the students, I started to pull into rooms and do sort of mini focus groups. And every student I talked to pretty much was like, no, it's great. The opportunities are good. And I was like, no, look, I got to do something here. What else can we do for you? When I listened to them, what I heard over and over was, I got a great job, I understand what I'm doing, but I don't have a good idea of what's going on in the rest of the bank. Or I'm interested in marketing, I'm exploring, I'm a first-year student. How do I actually get exposed to somebody in marketing? When I asked my manager, they didn't know anybody. So taking a listening strategy approach with students, because many of us are working in this realm and going 100 miles an hour and constantly hitting the reset button every year we go out to campus, or in this year, probably virtually to campus, take a breath and listen to your students. Even when they're away through the summer, this is a great opportunity to figure out what's good and what we can be learning virtually. Out of some of the results on this screen, you can kind of see, we actually surveyed our students around our RBC Cafe, and one of the key aha moments was the fact that 60% of our students gain knowledge in networking. So again, back to knowledge networks, back to the fact that this might be their first coffee chat, this might be their first corporate job, this might not be a cultural comfort level for them, but what we learned by promoting the cafe and spending time on it and going to different chats, they were able to build networking as a key skill, which definitely differentiated them when they were looking for that next opportunity. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit from a coffee chat to a full-time road. So I like to tell a lot of stories. If you get to know me, that's what you'll see. And if you followed me on LinkedIn, I apologize because I share lots of stories there too. I'll be filling up your inbox or your LinkedIn views. But Fuad Muhammad is a great example of a live story and a real person who actually came to RBC through his network. He was working in a suit store in the Eaton Center here in Toronto. And in walked a wealth management executive who was shopping for a suit. Fuad happened to be his fashion designer, editor kind of person there working, and actually said, they started a conversation. And lo and behold, he said, you know, I work at RBC. And Fuad said, wow, I'd love to work at RBC. I'd like to see what that's all about. So he said, well, call Brien. We'll set you up with an interview and we'll get you started. So Fuad came in, he had his interview, and lo and behold, he got his job in wealth management for the summer. Once he started, he jumped right on our networking platform, and I had a coffee with him and we chatted. And he said, I think I'm interested in capital markets. I'd like to explore. I said, well, you got 4 months. You got office hours, group chats, one-on-one chats. Go find out all you can about capital markets. Come back to me by the end of the summer and let me know. So he went out and did that. He came back and of course was very interested in capital markets. He'd done his research, his homework, built his networking skills. And we actually had some opportunities down in the US. So I said, hey, we can, if you're open to it, We could send you down for an interview in New York for an opportunity in capital markets in the US. And he's like, of course, Manhattan, Wall Street, capital markets all at once, amazing. So we sent him down, he had the interview, and he got hired for the summer. We also have the RBC Cafe in the US, and again, Fod, using his networking skills and everything he learned, he networked through the bank, and lo and behold, that end of the summer, he had a full-time job in Manhattan on Wall Street in capital markets. So in 18 months, he went from working in a suit store to working in Toronto to living his dream in New York City, all through the power of networking. And now I'll hand it over to Bridget.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I love that story. So neat. Hi, everyone. So I want to share with you today, really taking back in time about 6 weeks to when things really kicked off for everyone in this crazy time, and really looking at the shift a lot of you probably had to do from an in-person internship program, which you're all planning to have, to quickly adapting to a remote program, completely virtual. So 6 weeks ago at IBM, globally, we made the decision to shift all our internship programs to 100% virtual. So that being said, the entire summer experience will be virtual throughout. Even if the offices do open back up, depending what happens, we really wanted to have a world-class virtual internship experience. And how we went about that was really focused on the user. So we pulled together over a 6-week time frame agile sprints using IBM design thinking methodology. So we had everyone pulled together, over 40 team members working tirelessly to pull off this new program. And what I really want to stress is remote, for us at least, isn't really new. We've been working remotely with technologies, and I'm sure many of you have for a number of years. We have a global workforce. Every day we're connecting remotely. But really what was new and unique about this situation was still offering a really personable internship experience in a remote environment. And I think that's something we all struggle with. So what we really wanted to come up with and make sure we were providing value for our interns was in terms of their overall experience, whether that's their career path, their learning and development opportunities, to networking. So how we did that was really gathering feedback from our current interns, from new grads, really focusing on the user themselves, and then having that constant feedback and iteration loop, so we can quickly pivot on what we were building. And one of the challenges when we were doing that really was, as early career professionals, we have the most creative team, I like to say, at IBM. And really everyone was so innovative with what they were proposing. So in our first iteration, we actually found out we had too many offerings. And the feedback from the business was that we are a little nervous about when is the intern actually going to get their work done. So I think many of you have probably heard similar insights from the business in terms of really that balance of providing a really enriching internship experience, but also like what are the results for the business and for the intern that are coming out of it. So striking that balance between offering a great experience, but still seeing the results and still measuring the intern's work is something we had to kind of iterate on. So we quickly adapted and had a more condensed offering. And really the focus is that these offerings are all optional, but what's great is there's something available for the interns when they do have that downtime, which I know we're all expecting and we need to be aware of. So just a couple key things I wanted to touch on. When we talked about pivoting social events, I mean, a lot of interns, it's their first time perhaps away from home in this new environment, and the social events in their new internship are such a key component. So we look to really move that from this in-person to virtual. So anything from trivia night to Minecraft tournaments, we're having a lot of really exciting things, offerings for them. And beyond that, we have a hackathon. So it's a 3-day hackathon, which we're excited about. We're focused on the COVID-19 response efforts. So we're actually putting the interns to work in teams to see what they can come up with there, tied back to our overall response efforts for COVID-19. So a lot happening, but I think as early career teams, it's really our role to really bring it all together and provide these offerings for the hiring managers and the teams to have a supported experience this summer. And just last thing I want to touch on is really pulling together a virtual internship guide for managers. So, you know, most of us do have lots of training in place for managers, for hiring teams, for mentors, but what about in this new remote environment? How can you manage an intern in this new situation? So where maybe a weekly touch point was enough when you're seeing them, passing them in the office every day, that's not up to par in this new world. So really ensuring that we're having that touch point daily with the intern and just offering those types of tips and strategies for the hiring teams. So that was a lot of information. I think we have some time for questions at the end, but yeah, Brien and I coffee chat time. So I think we're just gonna, a couple things we've been going back and forth with over the couple of weeks and we wanted to share with you. So first thing, in terms of how quickly I spoke to this, things have accelerated in terms of shifting completely remote. I know at IBM, we have 95% of our workforce globally is remote, probably similar with you, Brien.
Yeah.
And in a matter of seconds, we've had to eliminate typical events, team in-person, networking, in-person onboarding, laptop setup. So it was crazy, like flip of a switch, shifting to this new environment. And I know for us, it's been challenging. I'm not gonna lie, it's been crazy these last few weeks. I'd love to hear, Brien, your thoughts on this shift.
Yeah, this slide just hits on a nerve, I think, for all of us that we felt. It was difficult to deal with all these things being canceled, and also some of us smack in the middle of recruiting for the summer as well, depending on when your cycles were. So, you know, we were literally on planes and then it came to a crashing halt and we all just went home. And so, so I think this is the stuff we're all struggling with. And like you said, 6 weeks ago, everything in our world changed. Every way that we thought we could connect our students, bring in our students, everything we were thinking and planning changed. And so for us as well at RBC, we're pretty much, I think we're at 85% working from home as well. And the situations we're faced with are just our own workforce getting used to the new normal or getting used to work from home. And now we're saying, and here's your student, right? So how do you team together? How do you partner? That's been our challenge. And even for us, like we were planning to do up until a week and a half ago, bring your own device. So we were gearing up everyone to bring their own device for the summer. And late Thursday last week, we said, nope, we're going to ship 900 laptops out to everybody. So the pivoting and the direction and the shift definitely has been at a rapid, agile, I even want to say disruptive pace. But at the same token, you know, it's been energizing in some sense as well to work with the talented people we all get to work with, and somehow we all come together and we get there.
That's awesome. I think just carrying on, I think the fly on the wall, I think something that we've heard both of you talk about a lot is building the plane as we fly. So over to how you've been addressing that.
Yeah, so this is a visual. Feel free to take pictures of this and share it with everybody at your organization, because I show this slide every time I start talking. I think people just call me Brien, # building the plane as we fly it. But this is such a visual, right? It's the fact is we're all in this, we're all doing this at the same time. But what we found was really helpful was to be transparent. We started hosting manager calls. You know, other people in the organization, you know, we're also helping out and teaming up. But we take it right down to the basics. Like we talk to managers all the time through difficult situations as well, pre-COVID-19. So for us, this is sort of natural for us. I think the challenge was, how do you bring the rest of your organization into feeling comfortable with sharing half the information with your managers and then getting a ton of questions? You know, initially everyone's sort of reaction was like, wait, the plane's not built. I'm like, we got wings, we're going. And basically that's how we got to find out that we had 15 other things to deal with. If we didn't actually share what was the issue or what we were doing, we wouldn't have known that, oh, by the way, these people can't use laptops because of their job, they're going to need a different device. And so that's the visual here. But I think I love to bring this slide up all the time because it's so true of our world. And I think in today's world and future, this is going to be the reality if you want to be, you know, moving quickly through things. You don't always have time to go through all of the crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So Bridget, what have you guys been seeing from your side?
Yeah, same thing. This slide gets shared a lot in our organization too. And I think even, Brien, you spoke to informing the business and that line of communication. Another thing, like we quickly had to pivot on, is keeping the candidates informed and our students. So I know a lot of companies were in that stage of kind of making that decision. Are they going to cancel? Are they going to go virtual? Are they going to do a phased approach? And we found right away, we just wanted to get on top of that and really get the communication out as soon as we could to just reassure our incoming hires that, you know, we haven't made a decision yet, but we haven't forgot about you.
Yeah.
And just keeping that like natural line of communication going with the candidates as well, I think that's super important, and it just kind of helps take away some of that uneasiness.
And we're in the people business, right? So I think sometimes we lose track of that, and we were so focused on the task to get from A to B that, to your point, the students as well, great point. Like we didn't need the fancy glossy corporate marketing spiel. We needed to pick up the phone and talk to students, right? So you know, that's important. Don't forget that's the part of it, is these are people, we're people. That human touch is so important.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a question that's come in from one of the audience members is just, how do you actually support the networking conversations with the right types of questions or tips to actually facilitate this new way of networks?
Yeah, so we're on 10,000 Coffees. We've had the RBC Cafe, it'll be 5 years this summer. And we've basically took what Bridget said earlier. There's not going to be any bypass students or us passing them in the hallways on the way to the cafeteria or whatever. So we've basically took the functionality of the tools and the concepts of doing what we're calling water cooler chats or water cooler moments, where you might have met at the water cooler. And funny story, I tested this out with some students. They didn't know what a water cooler was. So we're actually going to start with a big picture of a water cooler and explain this is what happens at these things. And basically that's going to take care of sort of those collision moments that will not happen this summer naturally. And then the other thing is office hours, where we group them up for leadership chats. So we have planned out a diversity series. We have Olympians at RBC, so I'm pretty psyched about working with them. So we have an Olympian series. So we've grouped a diversity series we're doing with all our ERGs. So they're going to all speak on one day. I have them each got like 5 minutes to go and talk about their ERGs, so that it's not a slide on a PowerPoint deck that you might think about and then forget. So it's bringing all that stuff to life that you may have done, you know, through some sort of presentation, and really bringing it front and center through like tools like WebEx, whatever platform you're using. But we're gearing up that way, and we've been virtual, as Bridget said, we've been virtual forever. So now it's just, I've learned, my boss, my senior vice president said to me the other day, we're learning a lot, but we're also unlearning. And I really focused on that moment, because I'm unlearning how to cater to the people in the room and not the ones on the webinar. And I now realize I'm biased towards the people in the room. And in the past, I've probably disadvantaged people because I was focusing who was right in front of me, not who was on the webinar. And that's a big change. So don't be shy to think about unlearning things that you do to make it work for this new new way of work.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, at IBM, we're kind of the same points, Brian, about that networking piece has been huge for us. We reached out to the 10,000 Coffees team once we were shifting to this virtual model, and we're still struggling with how can we make this mentorship happen, this one-to-one mentoring. And a huge part for us is our diversity mentorship program. So our BRGs are amazing. They've run a lot of in-person events, but we were concerned about how these diverse groups of interns can really connect with them in this new environment. And so we're excited about the offering there to allow them through the platform to do one-on-one mentorship based on those groups, and then also some fireside chats. So more to come on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to chat further.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so we're full of pictures today. So this is one we've been using a lot at IBM. And I think I love this because it really speaks to what is the new normal after all of this. So this metaphor of we've emptied the house, we've taken everything back out, and for most companies, we've emptied the offices, everyone's out of there. And now we're really deciding what furniture are we going to move back in. So what are the pieces of our programs, of what we've been doing that might stay virtual or remote, stay digital? And those are questions we're asking ourselves. I know, Brian, you've had similar conversations, and it'll be interesting to see what is our new norm, and maybe it's been a great time to realize we should have been doing it this way all along.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's good lessons, right? And I love this picture that you guys use in the analogy here, because one of the things we also just recently said was the whole idea of we reconfigured all our floors to be open concept and within feet of each other, and now that's not going to work. So the idea of even us going back in the office and students is probably a forward thought way down the line that will even be there anytime soon. I think we exited quickly. I think it'll take us more time to go back in, is what I'm seeing.
Absolutely.
And I think most of you will be feeling the same way. So this is a picture I like to use, not the closest alligator to the boat. And we're full of pictures and analogies today, so hopefully you guys are good with that. But when I talk about this, it's dealing with what's right in front of us. So thinking about what's happening next week with all of our students starting on Monday. This week, we're all geared up for what does the first week look like? What does the second week kind of look like? And we have programming as well, as like Bridget mentioned, planned out to help fill in some of the time between what they might have been doing going out with their peers or for lunch or coffee chat. So we'll be filling those in. But this concept of now it's time to post for fall. And I could just, and I know we had a chat with the schools and we're talking about the postings of the schools, and I know the schools are on here as well. Me even telling like leadership, oh, by the way, we got to get our postings up by May 4th. I could just feel the virtual eye rolls of what? We haven't even onboarded the students for the summer and you're telling us we got to post for the fall. So I kept saying, okay, it's not the closest alligator to the boat, but now it's becoming that. So as you all pivot and change and think about this concept, it's just the idea of how do you prioritize what's in front of you and how do you think about what's next. But we're quickly slipping into fall. And there's a bunch of people in the business that want to wait till July or August to decide how we're going to do that. And that's not how the ecosystem runs. So we're doing a lot more education of what we do. I think there's a greater appreciation for all of you if you're in town on the phone. I know people now are saying, wow, it's not just all the parties with the students and having fun times with coffee. You guys do a lot of work. So at the end of it, at least we'll be, they'll appreciate what we do a lot more. But yeah, Bridget, how about you guys? How are you doing with this and prioritization and things?
Yeah, very similar, Brian, the same types of things. And, already, we're bringing all the interns on, but we need to think about converting them, right? And having that demand open because we don't want to have everyone leave without an offer, right? And that's a key part of a lot of companies' early career strategy is really this intern to full-time pipeline. So I think it's just really thinking past. I know a lot of companies were quick to cancel, but the downstream effects on that will years to come in terms of your brand on campus, the conversions, your pipeline. You're just in a really tricky situation. So it's, I know for leadership, they might be quick to think of the financial implications of, you know, in the short term we're saving, but really thinking long term, it's really detrimental to your early career talent program.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think one of the questions that came through about offer conversion is, you know, so much of offer conversion is around having someone at the company that's championing your growth beyond just your manager. A question for both of you is, a lot of people do like a single mentor match and they kind of rely, they have all bets on that single match, that's their career soulmate throughout the term. Brien talked about knowledge networks. And I know Bridget designed your 10,000 copies program to have friends and peers and hiring managers and diversity group members. Maybe for the group, like, why did you go with that approach rather than hoping for kind of a single match? And why did you kind of diversify the network that every one of your interns have?
Yeah, do you want me to go first? Is that right?
Yeah, go ahead, Brien.
Okay.
Bridget second.
Yeah, 100%. So think about your own relationships. What are your best mentors or your best people you go to for advice, or what's it based on? Based on organic connections and a connection that you've made to that person. We've all been in that situation. I've been in it years ago where I was tagged up with someone on a spreadsheet and told to meet them for the next 6 months. First meeting, I said, this isn't working. And I don't mean to sound negative, but it was just, you know, it wasn't the great experience that I was expecting. And then just to fill out the spreadsheet to say I was meeting wasn't really what I was expecting, as well as a person being mentored. So what we've done is we've really set up our coffee environment so that you meet students, you meet other students, you meet students that made the work to school transition, you've met executives, you meet people in recruiting like myself. And all those people become part of your knowledge network that become mentors. But mentor's a verb, not a noun. And when you think of mentor as a verb, in my opinion, is that you're open to more people to be part of that ecosystem versus just one person who may have their own biases or their own knowledge, or might even be sharing, hate to say it, some outdated information with the students where, you know, it might be not the right advice. I read some stat that 93% of parents provide their kids with career advice and 3% get it right. Well, some of those people work at our organization. So when you think about that, you want more people to be in their network so they can learn more.
Yeah. Bridget, how do you think about that?
Yeah, we've similar thoughts there in terms of really, especially in this new virtual environment. I think it's just even more important that we're giving the interns and the students really as much exposure to different people as possible. So rather than that one-to-one mentorship relationship, which we do have a buddy system in place, which kind of helps with that, but we've really set things up so they can really meet people outside of their day-to-day teams, business units, and that's going to be very difficult for most of us in this new world. It's not so easy to just reach out to someone. So really setting the program up so it's multiple connections, multiple touch points happening. And I think another thing really with everyone working from home and balancing homeschooling and this new normal, the mentors themselves are really looking for more shorter touch points, quick connection points. I know a lot of mentorship programs get pushed back about the time commitment. Right, you know, you're balancing 100 things already on your plate. I don't want to commit to a 6-month one-to-one mentorship program. So I think what's really unique about this platform is that quick touch point. There's not really that long-term commitment, but it's more, what can I offer you in this quick coffee chat, this quick short-term conversation? So I think that's what's really worked nice in that aspect.
Yeah, Bridget, it's as though you read the next question that came in, which is how can people transfer the burden onto technology? And a couple people have asked if we can explain that a bit more. And really what Bridget and Brien have both talked about is those bite-sized moments and those connections are, unless your talent team can do 14,000 customized emails, which I don't think they can, you can leverage technology to actually automate all of those things and use machine learning to do it better. I don't think we'll have a ton of time to get into it in more detail,
Sure.
but we'll be able to demo to anyone that's joined this webinar kind of how technology can automate that, so that, as Bridget pointed out, your people managers who are doing at-home schooling, their regular jobs, all these other things, the talent team who's running a fully remote program for the first time, you don't want to add another to-do list. And we'll demo to anyone that's interested how you can just plug in technology to do all of that for you, so that these interns can get the experiences without you having to do it for them. Just going to another kind of question, and maybe we'll start with Bridget on this one. Something that's come in is like, how do you get buy-in from other people in the company to support the intern career development experience in a time where people are already stretched post-COVID? And Bridget, I'll start with you because I know you actually had some demand coming in from diversity groups, but how have you got people managers and other full-timers to be ready to support your incoming class?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for us, the buy-in is really, we really see our early career, our students as the future of IBM. So I think that's, most people in the company have the same feelings. So for us, the buy-in has been there because we're really nurturing this pipeline of future talent for us. And if we can start them off with an amazing experience as an intern and they come back for full time, we're already starting that career growth off. So that piece for us has been great. But I think there's just more interest really from everyone wanting to kind of support. And I think, Brien, we talked about this in terms of, we were kind of the last thing on everyone's mind last year at this time. We were kind of the nuisance, where now everyone is really, what are you guys doing for internship? What's happening? So much interest in early career talent right now, which is a great thing. So yeah, I think ensuring the buy-in is there, emphasizing that the time commitment, I keep going back to that, but really setting it up as a benefit, not only to the mentee, the student, but also to the mentor themselves, and really broadening their network. I look at it as a two-way relationship. There's a lot our full-timers can learn from intern. So that two-way dialogue, I think, is really important as well. I don't know, Brien, have you had
100%.
struggles with the buy-in piece as well?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it all there. Really, I don't really have much to. We were experiencing the same thing, Dave. So.
Yeah, and I think, the fact that this actually gives your people managers a chance to check out the next generation of talent. We've heard that across all organizations, and just make it easy and bite size, which of course a technology platform like 10,000 Copies can support on. But we can show anyone on the webinar kind of how that all. I think another question.
Can I make one quick comment? The slide you shared earlier, where it showed who's responsible, the manager, the program, the HR, that's a good one to show people too. And then just, and I did this one point in an earlier job, but was just throw everyone a ball, a soccer ball, a football. This is a team sport. Like everybody has skin in the game. And so with this slide, I would like add a football and a soccer ball and everything and say, we all own it. And also we're pretty much telling our students they own it. You got to own your career too. And if we provide the platforms, we'll entice you to get out. We'll give you starters, and especially for introverted people and people that don't come natural to networking. But when you look at this slide, this is what you should be talking about with your whole business. Like, yes, we all have key roles and responsibilities, but for this to come together, we all have to play as one team.
Yeah.
Sorry, it came to mind when you were talking.
Another question that came in, and Brien, this is kind of I know we have about 6 minutes left.
Okay.
So we have questions to go through, but
rapid fire.
I know something that's come through is how this is a career moment for everybody on the webinar, and what they pilot and test with this cohort can actually be applied across a lot of future work problems. Can you talk to us about, if and how you've been able to leverage this within early career, but then apply it across the different businesses? Was that something that happened to you, and maybe speak to how that kind of took off?
Super quick, because I know let's try to do some rapid fire before we end here. The way we handled this is that, to Bridget's point, all of a sudden we're the hottest ticket in town on campus recruiting in the organization. Not that we weren't before, but it's a focus. What we're learning is things like people opening up their accounts and their bank accounts, that we now are leveraging processes that were for newcomers to Canada, and other things that now is exploding across all of the experienced hires we're doing. So campus is providing almost a test bed. Everything we're doing is being used across all of HR, in changing processes and procedures and new things that are coming. It's kind of cool. We're on the cusp of it, and we're building the airplane as we fly it. But other groups are benefiting across the organization from what we're learning. So yeah, that's quick.
And a quick rapid fire question for Bridget and then to Brien. Can you speak to the length? Is it longer? Is it shortened? And then second is, how are you going to evaluate students at the end of the term? So Bridget, if you want to kind of answer those, and then Brien, you want to add in.
Yeah, sure. So we haven't, in Canada, we haven't changed the length of the internship at all. The US version is slightly condensed by a couple of weeks, but really we're looking at it, just really the time frame of evaluation has gotten much sooner. So very quickly, once they're on board, you're kind of already pivoting to, okay, now it's time to think about conversion and the evaluation process. So we've kind of built in shorter sprints within the internship experience, where we can kind of quickly get a feel for their work, their style, a lot quicker than we would normally do in the end. So we're really moving that evaluation phase up. But I think I want to stress, and I know, Brien, we've talked about this, is really, you know, students are resilient, and we're probably not going to be expecting as much out of them as we would in this in-person environment. So we all have to have a little room for empathy with employees, with our interns. Everyone's operating in this new normal. So it's going to look a little different how we evaluate, but I think that's what I wanted to really touch on, is how that will come through.
Yeah, and I'll say really, really quickly, I read a blog last night and I shared it on LinkedIn and Twitter today, 7 steps of human to their point, human attributes to how you're doing it this summer. And when you think about it, the quote was, you know, productivity and speed will come. What you need to spend time on the next couple of weeks is the mental well-being of your students that are joining, the human networking connections, and those human relationships. You know, if we're all just focusing on how productive the student can be and if they got their tech ready on day one, you know what, this is, how many of us are fully productive right now as it is as well? I mean, if we're really transparent and honest, I think us right now in early talent, and a lot of you in talent probably are more than productive. But I think when you think about the organization as a whole, like we need to look at this. So we're going to also be looking at our overall measurements of the students, and I think we need to take a different lens to it this year than we have in past.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're kind of getting close to the hour. There's a lot of questions that we couldn't really get to, but we will send follow-ups and connect with folks after that have submitted questions. I guess in the kind of the final minute or so, I guess if there's one thing, another question that came through was around listening strategy. What would you say is kind of the most important thing that you've heard from your students that you want, or you would recommend other people keep top of mind this summer? Brien, if you want to kick that off, and then we'll pass to Bridget.
So the thing I've heard was, we got this virtual world, we grew up in it, we're concerned you don't got it. You know, how are you going to manage? How are you going to work virtually? How are you going to help? You know, so I think that's why, again, I think we need to program, we need to provide opportunities, but we also have to realize that we can learn from them this summer. And as you're doing, Bridget, with your competition and things like that, we're doing a similar one where let's put these students up front, let them figure out what we should be doing. These are our future leaders. So I say, listen to your students and yeah, and see what they have to say about this new way of work.
Yeah. Bridget.
Yeah, on the same note, I think the biggest feedback has been there's been so many, the stats are out there about how many students have lost their internship for the summer. So what we've been hearing is they are just grateful for the opportunity and they're going to give it their all. So I think we have to keep that in mind in terms of really, all of us are really grateful we can still provide an awesome experience and they're ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is an exciting moment for all of us. And a congrats to everyone again for pushing so hard to make these programs come to life. As a next step, we'll share the recording with everybody that was on here. A big thanks to Bridget and Brien. I know you're working 7 days a week right now and to carve this hour and share some of your insights. Truly appreciated. We'll make sure everyone can get connected on LinkedIn after or otherwise. For any school that joined this, I know there's a few colleges and universities. We actually are offering our enterprise technology to schools in kind to provide career development to students so they can have career conversations with alumni. So we will follow up with schools to make sure you can take advantage of that program so that you can continue to support in a fully digital way. But with that, best of luck to all the participants of this webinar in your program. Any case studies or best practices, reach out at any point. We're here to help. And congrats again on that call to leadership and making your remote program come to life. So thanks again, Brien and Bridget, and have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you.